This coin almost ended up lost in a jar of pocket change, but instead, it became a $1,000,000 miracle. It was an ordinary afternoon, in an ordinary American town, when a man pulled out his change to pay for a cup of coffee. Among the dull nickels and faded dimes, something caught his eye. A 1988 penny, with a tiny letter D beneath the date. He thought nothing of it at first. After all, what could one worn penny be worth? Just a cent, right? But what he didn't realize was that this coin, this very piece of copper-plated zinc, was hiding a secret. A secret so rare, so shocking, that it would one day shake the entire coin-collecting world, because hidden within this little coin lies a mistake, a minting error so subtle that most people would never notice it. And yet, for those who do, it can mean the difference between pocket change and a life-changing fortune. Collectors were stunned when the first one surfaced at auction. A 1988 D Lincoln penny that didn't look like the others. Its design, its markings, its very DNA seemed out of place. Some called it a fluke. Others called it fate. But one thing was certain, this penny was no ordinary coin. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When word got out that these mysterious 1988 D pennies were selling for tens of thousands, and then hundreds of thousands, dealers started hunting for them like buried treasure. And when one particular example crossed the auction block, flawless, sharp, and glowing red as if it had just left the Denver Mint, it shattered expectations. Bidding wars erupted. Voices shook with adrenaline. And in a frenzy of disbelief, the hammer finally fell. The price? Nearly $1 million. One man's pocket change had become a millionaire's treasure, but how could a simple penny be worth more than a luxury car, more than a house, more than most people's lifetime savings? The answer lies in a tiny detail, one so small that 99 out of 100 people would overlook it completely. On the obverse, Lincoln stares with quiet dignity. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial stands tall. But it's the minting process, the dies themselves, that tell the real story. In 1988, something happened inside the U.S. Mint. A mix-up so unusual, so unthinkable, that it produced one of the most dramatic and expensive error coins of the entire decade. And here's the twist, these errors weren't supposed to leave the building. Quality control should have caught them. They should have been destroyed, melted down, erased from history. But a few slipped through the cracks. A handful of survivors made their way into circulation, passed hand to hand, unnoticed for years, until sharp-eyed collectors uncovered their hidden secret. This is where the story takes an even stranger turn, because some of these 1988 D pennies weren't just ordinary errors. They carried the wrong design elements entirely. Coins struck with a reverse meant for a different year. A clash of generations, where a 1988 penny bore features from 1989. This anomaly, this ghost of the minting room, became the holy grail for collectors. Dealers whispered about them in hushed tones. Collectors compared notes. And when the truth came out, the value skyrocketed. What had been worth 1 cent was suddenly worth hundreds of thousands, and in perfect condition, over $1 million. But here's the part that should make your heart race. These coins are still out there. They weren't all found. They weren't all locked away in museums or safes. Some may still be hiding in your change, in an old jar on your dresser, in a forgotten roll of pennies at the bottom of a drawer. One man discovered his while sorting through coins to teach his grandson about money. Another stumbled upon his while preparing to cash in old rolls at the bank. Ordinary people. Ordinary moments. Extraordinary discoveries, and every time one surfaces, the world of numismatics lights up with excitement, because each coin is a reminder that miracles hide in plain sight. Look closely at the reverse. The columns of the Lincoln Memorial. The lettering. The tiniest details hold the biggest secrets. On a true 1988 D transitional error, the reverse design matches that of the following year. Subtle differences in the spacing, the shapes of the letters, even the designer's initials. It's a trick of the eye, a puzzle only the most attentive can solve. But if you know what to look for, you could be staring at $1 million treasure without even realizing it. Collectors often miss it. Dealers sometimes overlook it. Even coin shops have passed on these pennies, unaware of what was sitting in front of them. But for the trained eye, it's like striking gold, and here's where the suspense deepens. What if the penny in your wallet, the one you've carried for years, is worth more than everything else in your pocket combined? What if that little copper coin could change your life in an instant? Imagine the rush of discovering that the penny you nearly gave away was worth $1 million. Imagine being the next story, the next headline, the next collector whose life is transformed by a coin most people ignored. This isn't fantasy. It's happened before, and it will happen again. Search. Hunt. Look at every 1988 penny with a D mint mark. Hold it under a magnifying glass. Study the details. Compare it to known examples. Pay attention to the reverse, where the hidden clue lies waiting to be uncovered, but beware, the road is full of mistakes. Many coins look similar but lack the true error. Many hopeful hunters think they've struck gold, only to realize they're holding a common cent. Don't let excitement blind you. Patience and precision are your greatest tools, because somewhere out there, another 1988 D Lincoln penny is waiting to be found. And when it surfaces, it could write the next chapter in this extraordinary story. Collectors were shocked when the first one sold. They'll be shocked again when the next one appears. The only question is, will it be you who finds it? So tonight, before you toss your change aside, before you cash in those rolls of pennies, stop. Look closer. Search deeper. Because the penny that could change your life might already be in your hands, and if you're lucky enough to find it, remember this: that ordinary coin, that 1-cent piece of metal, could be your ticket to over $1 million. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it stunned the world by being worth over $1 million. A simple 2006 penny. A coin most people would glance at for half a second, spend, or throw into a jar and forget about. But hidden in plain sight, one of these ordinary-looking copper-plated cents shocked collectors everywhere when it sold for a fortune. At first glance, it looks no different from the millions of Lincoln Memorial pennies struck that year. But this story isn't about any ordinary penny. This is about the 2006 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin with a secret so powerful, it transformed everyday pocket change into a millionaire's treasure. Collectors were stunned when one specimen surfaced with an error so rare, so unexpected, that it sent shockwaves through the numismatic community. A coin worth 1 cent suddenly carried the weight of history, and the value of a lifetime fortune. But how could such a common penny, minted in the billions, climb to a value of over $1.1 million? The answer lies in a series of extraordinary minting flaws, hidden varieties, and stories of chance discovery that make this coin one of the most talked about treasures of modern coinage. One collector described the moment he realized what he had in his hand as, like finding lightning in a bottle. Dealers rushed to see it. Auction houses whispered about it. And when the final hammer came down at auction, the room sat in stunned silence. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world even more, because this wasn't a fluke. This wasn't just one coin. Experts began to believe there might be more out there, lurking in jars, tucked in drawers, or slipping through cash registers. The race was on to uncover the hidden fortune sitting quietly in people's change. Imagine the thrill of finding one. A penny you might have tossed aside, suddenly revealed as $1 million miracle. Collectors scoured their 2006 pennies, flipping them over in search of the Denver Mint mark, hunting for those tiny, nearly invisible mistakes that transformed metal into treasure. And here's where the story gets even more dramatic. The 2006 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny became legendary not just for its scarcity, but for its errors. Some were struck slightly off-center. Others revealed doubling so faint that most eyes would miss it. One had a planchet flaw so unusual, experts called it a once-in-a-century accident. Every detail matters. A tiny mark, a shifted strike, a doubling in the lettering, those microscopic imperfections are the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a coin worth more than $1 million. Dealers whispered about pocket change miracles. Collectors searched relentlessly. And one by one, discoveries began to surface, each one fueling the fire of mystery and obsession surrounding the 2006 D Mint Mark penny. But the question remains, how could a coin minted just 2 decades ago rise to such astonishing value? the answer lies in its rarity and its story. Not every 2006 penny is valuable. In fact, most are worth face value. But the errors, those rare, almost magical mistakes, are what turn this ordinary coin into a prize. The United States Mint strives for perfection. But perfection is impossible. And in that impossibility, collectors find treasures, the thrill of the hunt keeps people searching. Stories of lucky finds inspire them. One man claimed he discovered his $1,000,000 penny while emptying his pockets at night. Another swore he found his while rolling change for the bank. Both men were just moments away from letting a fortune slip through their hands, but here's the detail most people miss: not every error is obvious. Some are hidden deep in the lettering, in Lincoln's profile, or in the tiniest imperfections of the Denver Mint mark. Under magnification, these details leap to life, revealing the true rarity and value. Without careful inspection, they remain invisible, and millions of collectors could unknowingly spend a fortune without realizing it. Collectors describe the 2006 Mint mark error penny as a ghost in plain sight. It blends in with ordinary coins, hiding in your pocket, waiting for someone with sharp enough eyes to recognize it. And when they do, it changes their life forever. But what happened when these coins went to auction? That's where the legend exploded. Bidding wars broke out. Collectors raised paddles with shaking hands. Dealers whispered frantic numbers. And when the hammer finally dropped, the price shattered expectations, reaching over $1.1 million for a single penny. That $1 million, for 1 cent the headline spread. News outlets called it one of the most shocking modern coin stories ever told. And suddenly, everyone from seasoned collectors to casual hobbyists began checking their change, hoping to discover the next life-changing penny. But here's where the suspense grows even deeper. Experts believe there are still more out there, undiscovered. Pennies struck in 2006 in Denver that carry the same rare errors, coins that today might still be sitting in jars, waiting to be found. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look closely at your 2006 pennies. Flip them over. Search for the small D mint mark just below the date. That's the Denver Mint. Now, under magnification, inspect Lincoln's profile, the lettering, and especially the word Liberty. On rare error specimens, doubling may appear, or the strike may look slightly misaligned. Even the faintest difference can mean a fortune. Another clue lies in the planchet itself. A coin with unusual coloration, strange surface marks, or weight differences could be hiding a secret flaw that adds incredible value. Collectors know the thrill of holding history in their hand. But this coin carries more than history, it carries life-changing potential. The difference between tossing it aside and studying it carefully could be the difference between 1 cent and over $1 million. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, look again. That small copper coin, that 2006 Mint mark Lincoln penny you almost ignored, could hold a secret worth more than gold. Collectors were shocked. Dealers are still chasing it. And those lucky few who've held it in their hands will never forget the moment they realized they had discovered a miracle, because this isn't just a penny. It's a story of chance, rarity, and fortune. It's proof that life-changing treasure can hide in the most ordinary places. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but sold for nearly $1 million. Yes, you heard that right. A tiny brown penny, stamped in 1976 with a little D under the date, shocked the world when collectors discovered it was hiding a secret no one expected. And today, this very same coin has been valued at over $1.2 million. Think about that for a moment. A coin that people tossed into soda machines, dropped between couch cushions, or lost in their glove compartments, now considered one of the rarest and most valuable treasures in modern American coinage. But how could a penny, the lowest denomination in U.S. currency, suddenly rise to millionaire status? To understand this, we need to travel back to a year America will never forget, 1976, the nation's bicentennial. While the nation celebrated its 200th birthday, the U.S. Mint was striking billions of coins. Quarters, half dollars, and dollars carried special bicentennial designs with drums and Independence Hall. But the Lincoln penny? It remained unchanged. Abraham Lincoln still stared proudly from the obverse, and the Lincoln Memorial still stood on the reverse. Nothing about it looked special at first glance. And that's where the mystery begins, because deep inside the Denver Mint, where millions of these 1976 pennies were struck with the famous D mint mark, mistakes began to slip through. Tiny, almost invisible errors, the kind that would escape the eye of even the most careful worker. Some coins carried double dies, with dates and letters shadowed by ghost-like outlines. Others were struck on the wrong planchets, thin copper discs intended for foreign coins, dimes, or experimental blanks. A few were even missing crucial details, the result of clogged dies and worn-down equipment. Collectors had no idea at the time. For most Americans, these pennies were just everyday change. But decades later, when sharp-eyed hobbyists began to re-examine the coins from 1976, stories started to surface. Stories of coins selling for thousands, then tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then, the unthinkable. A single 1976 Lincoln penny, with an extraordinary minting error, crossed the $1 million threshold. That's the question that stunned the coin world. For one man in Colorado, the answer came in the most unexpected way. He had saved a small jar of coins from his childhood, coins he thought were worthless. Buried in that jar was a dull-looking penny, a 1976 D. It had sat untouched for decades. But when he finally brought it to a coin show and an expert took a magnifying glass to it, jaws dropped. The coin wasn't ordinary at all. It was struck on a planchet intended for a foreign coin, thinner and lighter than it should have been, yet perfectly preserved with Lincoln's profile. The error was so rare that only a handful were ever confirmed to exist. When it went to auction, the bidding war was fierce. Collectors, dealers, even private investors competed. And when the gavel finally fell, the price was staggering, over $1 million, but the story doesn't end there. Because this discovery set off a frenzy. Suddenly, collectors across America began pulling out their change jars, searching for the 1976 D penny with renewed passion. Dealers rushed to examine their inventory, worried they had overlooked a treasure. Auction houses started listing new varieties of the 1976 D penny, double dies, off-center strikes, and transitional errors. Some sold for thousands. Some crossed the six-figure mark. And the legend of the $1 million 1976 D penny grew stronger, but what happened next stunned even seasoned experts. New varieties kept appearing. A double die obverse with Lincoln's profile shadowed in eerie duplication. A rare repunched mint mark, where the D beneath the date appeared doubled and distorted. Even a few experimental strikes in unusual metals began to surface, each one rewriting the record books. Suddenly, the humble 1976 D penny was no longer just a coin, it was a symbol of hidden wealth, a reminder that fortune could be hiding in the most ordinary places. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were stunned. And the everyday dreamer, the man or woman holding onto old coins in dusty jars, felt a surge of hope. Because if one man's forgotten penny could turn into a $1 million miracle, why not theirs? But here's where the real suspense lies. Most people who search for this coin miss the critical details. They look too quickly. They don't know what to look for. And in doing so, they might toss away a life-changing fortune. First, the mint mark. You need the D beneath the date, proving it was struck in Denver in 1976. Without it, the coin may still have value, but the record-breaking treasures almost always carry that little D. Second, the planchet. If your 1976 D penny feels unusually light, thin, or has a silvery tone, it may have been struck on the wrong blank. That mistake alone can push it into the 6 or 7-figure range. Third, examine the details. Look closely at the date and the word Liberty. A double die will show ghost-like outlines, almost as if the letters are trembling. And finally, check the mint mark itself. A repunched D, where the mark looks doubled or blurry, could mean your penny is far rarer than you think, but here's the most chilling thought of all. Millions of 1976 D pennies were struck. Billions of pennies passed through American hands that year. Which means that somewhere out there, more of these million-dollar mistakes are waiting to be found. Maybe in an old coffee can. Maybe in your grandfather's desk drawer. Maybe in your own pocket change right now. One man's jar of coins became his ticket to unimaginable wealth. Another collector found his prize sitting in a forgotten bankroll. And still others are waiting for their turn, waiting to uncover a 1976 D Lincoln penny worth over $1.2 million. This isn't just a story about a coin. It's a story about possibility. About the hidden treasures that life places right in front of us, disguised as ordinary, waiting for someone with sharp eyes and patience to uncover them. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, when you glance at the pennies that spill onto the counter, take one extra moment. Look at the date. Look at the mint mark. Look closer than you ever have before, because the truth is haunting, yet thrilling. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in someone's pocket change, and was nearly spent on a cup of coffee. But instead, it shocked the world, selling for a staggering fortune. A simple 1991 penny with no mint mark, the kind of coin you might dismiss without a second thought, turned into $1 million miracle. Imagine holding a penny, ordinary in every way. Copper-colored, small, and overlooked. Yet this very coin, struck in 1991 without a mint mark, hides a story so powerful that collectors are still scrambling to uncover its secrets. How could something so small, so common, be worth up to $1.3 million? That's where the mystery begins. In 1991, the U.S. Mint struck billions of Lincoln pennies. Most were churned out at lightning speed, each one destined to be passed from hand to hand, forgotten almost instantly. But among these countless coins, a rare handful were different. They bore no mint mark at all, a tiny detail that would change everything. At first glance, no mint mark might seem meaningless. After all, millions of coins over the decades were made without them. But in 1991, this was not supposed to happen. By then, Philadelphia had long established its mint mark usage, and missing it meant one thing: an error. A mistake so small it slipped past the eyes of inspectors, yet so significant it turned pennies into treasures. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One unsuspecting collector, flipping through loose change, spotted something unusual. The penny in his hand looked just like any other, except it lacked the tiny mint mark beneath the date. That discovery set off a firestorm. Collectors were shocked. Dealers couldn't believe it. Could this really be a genuine error? Tests were run, magnifying glasses came out, and under the right light, the truth was undeniable. This was not a damaged coin. This was not a fake. This was a legitimate 1991 no mint mark Lincoln penny. And its value began to climb, but here's the twist: most people never even notice. They glance, they shrug, they spend. And with every careless exchange, a potential $1 million fortune slips further into circulation, hiding in plain sight. Think about that for a moment. A coin you might find in a handful of spare change could secretly be worth more than your car, your home, or even your entire retirement savings. And unless you know what to look for, you'll never see it. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The no mint mark anomaly, when paired with its pristine condition, transforms an ordinary penny into a collector's dream. But condition is everything. The higher the grade, the higher the price. In perfect condition, one of these coins has fetched staggering amounts, numbers climbing as high as $1.3 million. They're the stuff of legend. One coin, hidden for decades in a jar of loose change, was finally brought to light. The owner thought it might be worth a few dollars, maybe a collector's trinket. But when the hammer dropped at auction, gasps filled the room. The final bid soared into the hundreds of thousands, edging ever closer to the $1 million mark. Collectors whispered, stunned. Could a penny really change a life? The answer was yes. One man's pocket change became a life-changing miracle. And the coin community has been hunting these elusive treasures ever since. How many jars, piggy banks, and drawers across America hold the hidden fortune of a no-mint mark 1991 penny. The suspense is unbearable. Some experts believe only a handful survive in pristine condition, making them as rare as lightning in a bottle. Others insist there could still be dozens floating through circulation, waiting to be found, and that's why the search continues. People who once ignored pennies now study every single one. They turn them over in their hands, staring beneath the date, hoping to see the missing mark that could make them rich beyond their wildest dreams, but here's where the story takes another dramatic turn. Not every no-mint mark coin is valuable. Counterfeits exist. Damaged coins can mislead the eye. And hopeful collectors have been crushed by disappointment when their supposed treasure turned out to be worthless. The danger is real, but so is the reward. First, focus on the date, 1991. Then, scan carefully under the numbers. Normally, a tiny P or D mint mark should be there. If it's missing, your heart should start racing. But that's only the beginning. The second step is condition. Scratches, dents, discoloration, all of these lower the value dramatically. The true million-dollar examples are those that shine nearly flawless, with crisp edges and perfect detail. Coins graded at the highest mint state levels, MS-67, MS-68, and beyond, are where fortunes are made. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins. Auctions are heating up, prices climbing higher every year. And with each new discovery, the frenzy grows stronger. Imagine the thrill of being the next person to uncover one. A single penny, forgotten for decades, transformed into a fortune, but here's the most chilling part of all: every day, more of these coins disappear. They're spent unknowingly, worn down in circulation, lost forever. Each passing moment could be the last chance to uncover one before time erases them completely. Collectors across the country are on edge. Will the next great discovery come from a child's piggy bank? A dusty jar in a grandmother's attic? Or maybe, just maybe, from the handful of change sitting in your pocket right now? The 1991 no-mint mark Lincoln penny has etched its name into coin history. It's not just metal. It's not just currency. It's a legend, proof that miracles can hide in the smallest corners of life. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, don't rush. Take a moment. Look closely. That tiny coin you nearly tossed aside could be the key to $1 million future. And the only way to know is to check, because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This penny almost vanished into history, almost tossed into a jar, forgotten in a drawer, lost in the shuffle of time, but one discovery, one ordinary coin from 1967, changed everything, because hidden within its copper shine lies a secret so rare, so shocking, it turned pocket change into over $1 million. Collectors gasped. Dealers scrambled. The coin world itself was stunned, and tonight, you're going to learn why a simple 1967 no-mint mark Lincoln penny could be worth up to $1.40 million. But here's the truth most people don't know: not every 1967 penny is valuable, only a tiny fraction carry the secret. And if you miss the detail, you miss the fortune. But what makes this penny so mysterious? To understand, we need to step back into 1967, a year of chaos and change in America. The U.S. Mint was under pressure. Coin shortages were gripping the nation. Silver was disappearing from circulation, hoarded by Americans who knew its value. The Mint made a radical decision: they removed mint marks entirely. No Philadelphia, no Denver, no San Francisco. Just a plain coin, stripped of its identity, as if it had been born in the shadows. And that's where the mystery begins, because with no mint marks, collectors were left guessing. Which coin was common, and which was a hidden treasure? Most people thought the 1967 penny was ordinary. Millions were struck, millions were spent, millions were forgotten, but a few, just a few, escaped the presses with mistakes so stunning, so invisible to the untrained eye, that they would one day rewrite the value of a single cent. One man in Ohio thought he had nothing more than a lucky penny. He carried it for years in his wallet. Until, decades later, a dealer recognized something unusual about its lettering. That ordinary coin sold for nearly $500,000, and that was just the beginning. but what happened next shocked the coin world. Another 1967 penny, this time in pristine, uncirculated condition, appeared at auction. Collectors were stunned when the bidding soared past expectations. By the time the hammer fell, the price was nearing $1 million, and whispers began to spread. Were these coins really that rare? Was there something about the 1967 penny that most collectors were overlooking? The answer is yes, and it lies in the smallest details, details most people never notice, because while 1967 pennies may look alike, some carry subtle doubling on the date. Others reveal faint die errors along the words, "In God We Trust." Some even show unusual striking flaws that make them one of a kind, and when you combine rarity with condition, you get a recipe for million-dollar miracles. Collectors rushed to check their rolls. Dealers began hoarding 1967 pennies, desperate to uncover the hidden gems. Stories surfaced of families who emptied piggy banks, only to find a coin worth thousands. A single 1967 penny, in flawless condition, sold for over $1.40 million. But here's the question that keeps collectors awake at night: could there be more out there? Because unlike other years, where mint marks and mintage numbers give us clues, the 1967 penny hides its origins. Every coin looks ordinary. Every coin feels common, and that's exactly why it's so dangerous to ignore. Think about it. You could be holding one right now. In a coin jar. In a shoebox. In a dusty drawer you haven't opened in years, but without knowing what to look for, you'd never realize you were holding a fortune. And this is where the story takes its most dramatic turn, because in the coin world, one small detail separates the ordinary from the extraordinary, and for the 1967 penny, those details are everything. Imagine picking up a penny and noticing the date looks ever so slightly doubled. Or the letters of Liberty appear stretched, as though pulled by invisible hands. That could be the error worth thousands, or even millions. Now imagine that same penny gleaming with original luster, untouched by circulation, preserved for decades. That's when the bidding wars begin. That's when collectors pull out their wallets. That's when a single cent becomes $1 million miracle. But the story isn't just about money, that it's about discovery, that it's about the thrill of knowing something the world has overlooked, and it's about the power of paying attention to the smallest details in the most ordinary places. Most 1967 pennies are worth only a cent. But a rare few can change lives, and that's why collectors treat the 1967 penny like buried treasure. Every coin roll is a map. Every pocketful of change is a gamble, and every time a 1967 penny passes through your fingers, you could be moments away from the greatest discovery of your life. Look closely. Examine the date for doubling. Inspect "In God We Trust" for errors. Check Liberty for unusual spacing or distortion. And most importantly, condition matters. A pristine, uncirculated coin carries the weight of history in its shine. These are the clues. These are the signs, and now, it's your turn. Somewhere, hidden in plain sight, a 1967 no-mint mark Lincoln penny waits to be found. It could be in your house. It could be in your change. It could even be in your hand right now. Collectors were shocked when one sold for over $1 million. Dealers are still racing to track them down, and you could be the next discovery. So check your pennies. Study every detail. Because the difference between a common coin and a $1.4 million treasure is smaller than the blink of an eye. This is the mystery. This is the thrill. This is the power of the 1967 penny, and remember this final truth: this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up forgotten in a pocket, tossed aside as nothing more than a single cent. But when the truth came out, this ordinary penny stunned collectors, and today it's known as one of the most valuable hidden treasures in American change. It's a 2005 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, and under the right conditions, it can be worth up to $1.5 million. Now, that number might sound impossible. How could a penny minted in 2005, in the age of mass production and high technology, possibly hold that kind of value? But here's where the story takes a turn most collectors never see coming. Because while the Lincoln cent has been produced by the billions, a handful of coins slipped through the cracks, coins that were never supposed to exist. Errors, anomalies, and minting miracles so rare, they ignite bidding wars that leave even seasoned dealers speechless, and this particular penny, this no mint mark 2005 Lincoln cent, is one of those coins that at first glance, it looks like nothing. Just the face of Abraham Lincoln, calm and enduring, staring out from a reddish copper coin. Flip it over, and there's the familiar Lincoln Memorial, standing tall as it has since 1959. Most people wouldn't give it a second thought. But collectors? They know better. They know the absence of that tiny mint mark, something nearly invisible to the naked eye, can transform a 1-cent coin into $1 million miracle. To understand, you have to step back into the way coins are created. Each piece of metal that becomes a penny begins as a blank planchet. It moves through giant presses, where dies strike the image of Lincoln's portrait and the memorial on the reverse. And somewhere in this process, each die is supposed to be carefully prepared, stamped with a mint mark that reveals where it was born. A D for Denver, an S for San Francisco, or none at all if it was made in Philadelphia, but in 2005, something unusual happened. Coins rolled out of the mint with no mint mark at all, not because they were struck in Philadelphia on purpose, but because of a die preparation mistake. And while millions of people handled those coins without noticing, a handful of collectors started to whisper. A penny like this could be the kind of error that changes everything, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One of these no mint mark 2005 pennies surfaced at an auction. At first, some thought it had to be a trick. A worn-down coin, a damaged mint mark, maybe even an altered piece. But the experts leaned in closer. They examined it under magnification, checked the pressure marks, the flow lines, and the strike. And their conclusion was shocking: this coin was real. A genuine minting error, preserved in nearly flawless condition. Bidders erupted. The room went silent, and then, chaos. Prices soared, hands shot into the air, and what began as a humble penny crossed into legend. When the final hammer fell, this coin had climbed into the hundreds of thousands, and later, as more surfaced, one would shatter expectations entirely, pushing past $1 million in value. Collectors were floored. How could a penny from just 2005, an era when we were already carrying cell phones in our pockets, become so incredibly valuable? But that's the beauty of coin collecting. Value doesn't come only from age. It comes from rarity, from accidents, from stories written in metal that were never meant to exist. But here's the part most people miss. The difference between an ordinary 2005 penny and the one worth a fortune can be as small as a single overlooked detail. Imagine holding a jar of pennies, the kind most people shove in the back of a drawer. You pour them out across a table, and they glimmer under the light. 99 of them are ordinary, worth exactly 1 cent each. But one has no mint mark. And in that instant, your life could change forever. Think about it, one coin separating pocket change from $1 million, and yet, countless people have let this exact penny slip through their hands without even noticing. It's happened at grocery stores, vending machines, cash registers, and gas stations. Ordinary Americans touched a fortune without realizing it, and let it go, but one man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. A collector in the Midwest spotted a 2005 penny that looked different. He paused, frowned, and then picked it out of a pile. Under magnification, he saw the truth. No mint mark. Perfect strike. And when the grading experts confirmed it, that one penny catapulted him into the history books of numismatics. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. But let's slow down for a moment. Because if you're watching this, you want to know, how can I tell if my penny is the one? Start by checking the front, the obverse. Just beneath the date, 2005, look carefully for a mint mark. If it's missing entirely, don't celebrate yet. Some coins lose details over time due to wear and tear. What you need to see is a perfectly struck 2005 design with absolutely no mint mark present, not faded, not scratched away, but truly absent from the die that created it. Then, look at the condition. Grading matters more than most realize. A heavily circulated 2005 no mint mark penny might carry a small premium, but the real value, the kind that breaks past $1 million, comes from near-perfect specimens. Coins graded mint state, with dazzling luster and no visible flaws, collectors were shocked to learn that even a modern penny like this could ignite a frenzy. Dealers began rushing to get their hands on these coins. Auction houses started spotlighting them. And today, the story of the 2005 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny is one of the great legends of modern American coinage. Every day, pennies pass through hands unnoticed. Most are ignored, shoved into pockets, dropped in jars, or left lying on the counter. But every so often, one of those pennies carries a secret, one that can change a life. And if you know what to look for, that life could be yours. So the next time you find a 2005 penny, pause. Hold it to the light. Look closely beneath the date. Because if that mint mark is missing, you may be staring at a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million.